We go to Flint, Michigan for a virtual civil hearing. Judge Herman Marable presiding. Timothy Moore has filed suit against his aunt, Cherkitha Love, claiming she's violated a lease agreement. Moore had recently rented a house to Love, but now he wants her to move out since he claims the lease is expired.
Mr. Moore, you indicated that the lease had expired.
Yes.
I don't see a copy of the lease attached to the complaint.
She has the lease. I don't have the lease.
But you're saying the lease has expired, so how can I look at the dates if you don't have a copy?
The judge now turns to Love, who's appearing in person. She has the lease, but doesn't seem to have read it.
So, what, you didn't read it?
Judge Merrill, I thought he wouldn't do me like that because I just had lost my sister and I moved in the house thinking my nephew would do right by me.
Oh, boy. There's stuff written in two different color inks. I don't know what that means. It doesn't state the length of time that the tenancy is to last. Here's what I'm going to do. Okay, I'm going to adjourn this.
Yesterday was my birthday, and I hate to have to come here today.
Everybody thinks their birthday is some special exemption for something.
It's not.
This is the second day in a row I've heard somebody say, well, it's my birthday, so therefore the rules don't apply. What's going on? Oh, my God. I'm not a judge at juvenile court, okay? I'm a judge at district court. I deal with adults. You know what I'm saying? So, when an 8-year-old tells me it's his birthday, I'm like, well, happy birthday, 8-year-old. But when grown people tell me it's their birthday and therefore I don't have to do this or I shouldn't have to show up for court or blah, 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 I really am not getting that.
It's because it's a special day for me and my sister that passed.
I get it, but it has nothing to do with court and what I have to do as a judge. Nobody's birthday exempts them from coming to court. Right. Not even mine. I guess I missed that memo about, the adult birthdays exempt them from doing stuff. No, it doesn't. Okay?
Can I speak, Your Honor?
No, I don't think you should. I think you should not. I think we should end it now with me telling you that it's adjourned to October 12th. We'll talk in October. And it'll be a week after my birthday. Maybe I won't show up that day because it's a week after my birthday and I don't want to show up that day.
The parties did return a few weeks later, but the case is still pending. Next, we're inside the 4th Circuit Court in Jackson, Michigan for a trial. 22-year-old Paul Bellar, 28-year-old Joseph Morrison, and 43-year-old Pete Masico have been charged with 1 felony count each of gang membership, providing material support for terrorist acts, and felony firearms. 2 years earlier, the 3 men were arrested as part of a militia group who allegedly intended to kill members of law enforcement and ultimately kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Today is the 7th day of the trial, and with the jury not in the courtroom, prosecutor Bill Ralston has a complaint about Bellar's behavior toward a specific juror.
Yeah, Judge, since the start of the trial, there's been nonverbal communication between one of the jurors, who's a female, and Mr. Bellar. The communication has been in the form of eye contact, smiling at each other. Today, Mr. Bellar had a physical response. He clenched both his fists and shook them in an affirmative way, spoke to Mr. Morrison immediately afterwards. And we're very concerned about this juror.
Bellar's attorney, Andrew Kirkpatrick, reaches over to grab an item off the table and then offers an explanation for his client's behavior.
Your Honor, just so the court's aware, the shaking of the fist is because of Skittles.
Earlier in the hearing, Kirkpatrick can be seen dropping what appears to be a package of candy on the table. And later it appears that Bellar is eating some of it.
There was a sidebar. I was talking to your clerk. I was asking for some candy. She said, Does your client want some Skittles? Because guess what? It's his birthday today. And oh, by the way, happy birthday. And she knew it was his birthday. And so she said, you want to give these Skittles to your client? She handed me the Skittles. And I showed Mr. Beller. And Mr. Beller said, you got me some Skittles. That's what that's about, Your Honor.
But Kirkpatrick also admits he has witnessed some flirting.
Now listen, I'm an officer of the court. I'm not going to try to say things on the record that aren't true. I have noticed her kind of looking at her. I had a conversation with my client regarding it. I kind of saw it, and I told him. He knows they haven't spoken outside of this. He's not winking at her. He's not doing anything to her to encourage her to, if she's got an issue, she's got an issue. But I don't think that's a basis to get rid of this juror. I just don't. And what they're classifying this is ridiculous. But again, I will not deny also that there's been a couple times she's walking, she looks at him. I can't say what that's about. Maybe she likes him, maybe she doesn't like it. There's no way of telling what's in the juror's mind and what exactly she's doing or thinking. But I can tell the court it was Skittles.
Hey, Your Honor, I would just like to say that, number one, I find some of the things that have been said here totally inappropriate. This is a juror that both sides agreed upon. She is supposed to judge the witnesses and judge the defendants. She's got to look over here. I've had rape case and child molestation case where jurors have looked at my client in the testimony and shook his head, nobody complained. For people to suggest that simply because a young woman who's been tasked with the duty of evaluating somebody's guilt or innocence and is looking over here, it must be some sort of flirtatious or romantic involvement, is just sexist.
After hearing from the defense, Judge Thomas Wilson shares his thoughts on the situation.
At first, I didn't really pay much attention, but as time has gone by, I've seen her looking at your client, Mr. Kirkpatrick. I've looked over quick enough to see him looking right at her. I've seen her smile a number of times. I see her looking directly at your client, and a number of times I've seen smiles come onto her face. Not great big smiles, but more of a small smirk on her face. It's enough that it's drawn my attention. I'm going to reserve judgment on whether I'm going to let her kick her off or not, and continue to keep my eye on what's going on.
Thank you, Your Honor.
2 days later, the judge dismissed the juror, saying it's safer to err on the side of caution. The three defendants were later found guilty of all charges. Bellar was sentenced to 7 years in prison. Morrison received a sentence of 10 years, and Masico sentenced to 12. All three have no chance of parole. Next, we head to the Cowlitz County Courthouse in Washington State. It's 12:40 p.m., just outside the security desk. The woman seen here is Michelle Flavin. Notice she's carrying a pink box. Don't worry, it's nothing dangerous, just a birthday cake for her 9-year-old daughter. She's bringing it inside the courthouse because she's afraid if she leaves it in the car, her dog will eat it. Flavin asks the security officer, there in white, to keep an eye on the cake while she meets with her sister inside. Her cake should be fine at a security checkpoint inside a courthouse. A few minutes later, this man, Robert Fredrickson, arrives at the courthouse. Fredrickson's here because of an indecent exposure charge. He's 50 years old. Fredrickson and the woman in front of him send their valuables through the metal detector. Just out of the frame, Fredrickson sees the birthday cake left with the officer. And what does he do? He puts his hand right in the cake and takes a bite. A woman notices the shameless act and might be thinking she's being punked. There goes Fredrickson, who appears to be licking his fingers. He heads to the water fountain, probably to wash evidence off his hands. The woman calls over another security officer. The officer in white, meanwhile, has eyes on the cake and can see the damage. Not only is Fredrickson busted, he's still licking cake from his fingers. The group gathers around the table, and that's when Fredrickson does the inexplicable. He goes back for seconds. The officer in white has seen enough of this frosting-filled crime scene. Fredrickson and the cake are thrown to the ground. A few more guards arrive, and Fredrickson is arrested. On top of the initial indecent exposure charge he was facing that day, Fredrickson also picked up another charge of third-degree theft, which was the icing on the cake. As for Flavin, a local grocery store heard about the incident and provided her with a brand new cake. This is the Turner Guilford Knight Correctional Center in Miami, Florida. And this is Eduardo Arama. Arama is supposed to be locked up inside said facility, but he's not, and that's a problem. The inmate did not escape. Instead, a paperwork error triggered his early release into the public on what just happened to be his 52nd birthday. It was a nice present, considering Arama still had just under a year to serve, linked to criminal mischief, probation violation, and shooting or throwing a deadly missile into a dwelling or vehicle. Yes, throwing a missile into a dwelling or vehicle. After realizing the mistake, authorities issued warnings to the public, including this wanted flyer. Based on Arama's criminal record, his accidental release was a serious situation. For nearly 3 days, there was no sign of Arama until he resurfaced in an unlikely place. On a Zoom call with the Miami-Dade Circuit Court. That's Arama, who, despite being aware that he's currently a wanted man, looks pretty relaxed from an undisclosed location with a friendly little pooch on his lap. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the Broward County Court set up an easily accessible portal for remote hearings. Prior to his release, Arama had a hearing scheduled for today that he should be joining from inside the correctional facility. But instead, it looks like he's on the patio. Despite being wanted by police, he shows up for his hearing and is even a little early. At the time, the only other person on the video call is his attorney, Assistant Public Defender Fadya Salem. But after a brief conversation discussing his situation with her, he hangs up before the actual hearing begins.
Mr. Arama is a sentenced inmate. He is sentenced to state prison. He was released in error.
As you know, Mr. Arama was present. His video was working. Then he turned it off.
Ms. Salem, have you spoken with him about surrendering?
Judge, I have spoken to him. This is his only request. He has only but a few possessions left to his name and a dog. And he's merely asking for the court to give him a date to surrender so that he can find somebody to take those possessions.
Despite the fact that Arama is supposed to be in jail, Salem continues to make the case for a little more free time for her client.
Your Honor, he's not a flight risk, answers the authorities' calls, appears in court on Zoom, is not at risk for a flight. We're merely asking for a day so that he can get his possessions to somebody to take care of.
But Judge Marlene Fernandez-Caravetzos seems to think Arama's dog-sitting vacation has lasted long enough.
He's had that day, Ms. Salem. He was released on Monday. It's now Thursday. He surrendered today.
Eduardo Arama was taken back into custody the following day without incident. The Miami-Dade Department of Corrections issued a statement saying, quote, "Our review of the circumstances surrounding this inmate release is ongoing to include a full internal investigation."
Okay, next fellow would be Joseph Jerome Baton.
We're in the Broward County Bond Court in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. The defendant is Joseph Jerome Baton, who's been charged with trespassing at a local track and casino for the second time in 2 months.
How you doing, Your Honor?
Good morning.
I do have a history, Your Honor. Can I speak to you, Your Honor?
In the past 2 years, Baton's made quite a habit of trespassing at local casinos. He's been convicted of it more than 10 times. So he knows the bond court drill, and he's not looking to resolve his case as the public defender suggested.
I already know I got a history. This man ain't said nothing to me now time in here this morning. All right, Your Honor? And I'm just being frank with you. That's the only place I go. Only thing I do, as you can see, is nothing but trespassing, because that's my only entertainment. All right, is go to the track, and I like for you to make an offer. And if I like it, I accept it.
Baton has just requested an offer of minimal jail time from the judge, and he's hoping it's an offer that'll work for him. He's also seemingly taken his case into his own hands.
You discharging your public defender at this time, sir?
No, I ain't discharging, but he ain't presented the way I wanted to be presented. I ain't say resolve this. I said make an offer, which is how much time, whatever is 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I want to resolve it in that frame, in that fashion, sir.
As his attorney attempts to rejoin the conversation, Baton doesn't let him.
Judge, I've explained to Mr. Baton not to talk about the facts of the case.
Ain't no facts. We ain't going to trial. I'm asking you to make an offer, Your Honor, straight up. It's history, proof is in the pudding. That's the only thing I got. As you can see, ain't nobody been hurt. I ain't never intoxicated when I'm arrested, so it ain't nothing. You know what I mean? All it is trespassing, simple trespassing.
Baton's presentation is compelling enough to convince Judge John Contini to follow through on the request.
I understand, and I'm going to respect your request, sir. I'm going to go ahead and offer you a chance to be, if you were to plead no contest at this time, sir, I would offer you an adjudication. You'd be convicted, of course, as you have indicated. You have many of those already, and you'd be in, the plea offer would be 45 days in the Broward County Jail.
Judge Contini has extended an offer. Now the ball is in Baton's court.
Well, no, I ain't gonna accept 45 days, because I did 30 days last time, just a week ago. But my birthday coming up, I'm hoping you can say a week or two, and I agree with that, you know what I mean? 45 days, nah, I think my regular judge would let me out before 45 days.
Well, you can already tell I'm not really a regular judge.
Judge Contini explains that since Baton is a repeat offender, 45 days in jail is a reasonable sentence.
Sir, you have a real history, and you've already indicated that's what you do, and that's what you're going to continue to do. And so
yeah, but ain't nobody been hurt. I ain't never intoxicated. I'm always bringing money to them places.
I respect your decision. I respect your decision. Your decision is to decline the offer at this time. Is that right?
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to accept the 45 days.
Okay. All right.
And in the end, Joseph Baton did not serve 45 days. He eventually appeared before a different judge, pled no contest to trespassing, and received just 17 days in jail. Thanks for being a fan of Court Cam. Subscribe to A&E to never miss a new video and catch full episodes on aetv.com.